The reason why I believe, and Allahu Alam, I have to be careful speaking on the speech of Allah and His intentions. But the reason why I believe that the Dajjal is not mentioned explicitly in the Quran is that in and of itself, of knowing who the deceiver is a matter of faith and is part of whether or not you will succeed the deception that will take place. Part of that requires faith in the Prophet ﷺ and what he has said. Because if it's a matter that has been mentioned in the Quran, then it is not something that can be debatable. But people do debate this matter itself when it comes to the hadith. And there are many people who simply do not want to accept that the Dajjal is something that's real, that is already manifest and highly anticipated, in full manifestation in the near future. There are many people who do not want to accept that. And in my book, that's a criterion that I have put in the very beginning, that you either accept that it is real right now, it's happening, or you reject it. There's no middle ground there, because I don't play with middle ground fallacies. If you accept it, then you should be ready to attest that the life you've been living till now has been questionable. The things that you've been doing, the technologies that you've been so eager about as if it's the next best thing closest to heaven, you need to be questioning that. The lifestyle that you've been living, you need to change that. There are sacrifices that you now need to make if you accept that this is an antichristal age that we are living in. You have to make certain changes and people will not. The reason my wife is laughing because she kept asking me this question and why people don't want to accept that. And the answer that I gave her was that because to accept that this is an antichristal age means that they have to change their lifestyles that they are not prepared to do. Then they're not prepared to let go of these lifestyles that they're so eager, they're so accustomed to, so attached to. You see, so that's going to be a point. And that's why the entirety of the Quran, though it doesn't mention the Dajjal explicitly, you will find his implicit mention in almost every surah of the Quran. I can give you a whole disposition of the Dajjal from the Quran alone without mentioning the hadith. And I think I do that for the most part of the book that I've put together. Almost everything that I've mentioned in the majority of it is from the Quran. As for Gog and Magog, the impression that I see people holding about Gog and Magog is that, these are creatures that are living underground and they are always digging and trying to get out, but somehow they just cannot get out, and then ultimately they will get out and they look like goblins and they have big ears and they're going to spread out and eat everything. And this is the impression that people have about Gog and Magog. It's unfortunate because this was not the impression of previous scholars prior to the 19th century, the 20th century. That was not the impression of those scholars. If you read their works, they do speak about Gog and Magog to a great degree, and even insofar as identification of genealogy and these type of things. The late 19th, 20th century of scholarship has all but, in one sense, deliberately suppressed that, and in another sense, just completely ignored it as not a fundamental requirement of scholarship, so they didn't pursue it any further. But if somebody actually goes deeper into prior works and will find a lot of material regarding Gog and Magog, regarding their genealogy, regarding their geography, their placement, their movement, their migration, a lot of things, even their linguistics, their language as well. There is a lot of information that scholars have explored in the past. Modernity, the modern contemporary scholars unfortunately have really lapsed on that, and it's very, it's regrettable. That's been further compounded by film and media, because abstraction from words is different when compared to abstraction from forced imagery. So, coming down to the early 2000s, when a lot of this talk started coming up about eschatology and end of times and whatnot, because media was really helping to spread all this different lectures and different individual scholars going to different places to lecture on certain topics and people getting intrigued by this. But then this was also being paired with things like cinema. And when you had now films like, The Lord of the Rings coming up, people started associating that imagery to Gog and Magog, because some of that imagery was sort of verbatim saying what the hadith was saying, but the people don't understand how the hadith language works in terms of its descriptives. So that again sort of just gets diminished and people don't end up believing in that. Then you had other mainstream scholars, whom I'm not going to mention names, start coming up with all kinds of ridiculous theories like zombie apocalypse and viruses and all these type of things, which is just ridiculous. And they should really stop talking about subjects they have no knowledge of. Doesn't matter how popular they are, they should stop. Just don't talk about something you have no knowledge of, that you really haven't studied. Stop trying to explain things that are not part of your... If you are a mufti, stick to fatwa. Don't talk about eschatology. That's not your domain. You see, if you are a mutakallim, stick to aqidah. Teach that. Teach Quran. Do those things. Don't talk on subjects you have no, because you're leading people astray. And the image is now, the concept created in people's minds leads them to not take the matter as seriously as they should. And this is where the problem lies. Now, unfortunately, I've not had the time to really talk about Gog and Magog in my writings as much, because there's a lot of research also involved in compilation. But I'll leave you with this in terms of Gog and Magog. When it comes to Gog and Magog, you have to first and foremost remember that it's not about genealogy or genetics. The Quran does not give you genetic markers regarding this particular sign. The Quran gives you an ideological marker. And that ideological marker is fasad. These people are identified as mufsidun fil ard. They are individuals of grave corruption in the world. The second point on that, after that, is to understand what does fasad mean. Because again, and I blame these on the scholars who lapse in teaching these concepts the way they should be taught, because they paint the picture of fasad being related to things like pollution, these type of things. But there are other kinds of fasad that are far worse than material corruption. The kind of fasad that, for example, challenges divinity in terms of dominion. The kind of fasad that is propagated by something like secularism. These are the markers that identify Gog and Magog. And therefore, it's not about genetics. It's not about which race is it today. It's not about that. Because if they are already spread out in the world, then it doesn't matter which direction you point at, you will be pointing at Gog and Magog. Whether it is Europeans, or it is Chinese, or it is Russians, or it is Africans, or whatever it is. The way you will be able to distinguish who is Gog and Magog and who is not is by looking at what ideology that they follow. Is it that ideology that is challenging divine authority and sovereignty in the world? Is it that ideology that wants to maintain, to build a supremacy of mankind in the world? Is it that ideology from which stems things like genetic modification? AI, robotics, these type of things? Is it that ideology which propagates other ideologies, other ideas like evolution and these type of things? Because these are the areas of corruption. Corruption in education, corruption in knowledge, corruption in religion, corruption in finance and economics, corruption in politics and governance. Where does that come from? That is Gog and Magog. That's the one you want to identify as Gog and Magog. The one who wants to spread democracy, the one who is talking about secular, the one who has turned virtue into values, the one who talks about values, you see, Western values, Western democracy, that is Gog and Magog. And whosoever follows that ideology, that person is one of them. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. Whosoever amongst you follows them, you are one of them. So if you adapt the same ideology, if you speak the same language, because whoever speaks the language of a people belongs to that people. مَنْ تَكَلَّمَ الْعَرَبِيَّ فَهُوَ عَرَبِيٌّ. One who speaks the Arabic language is an Arab. Therefore, if you are speaking their language, and I don't mean if you're speaking English, English is not the problem, but if you speak their language, the way they speak, the way they articulate, the terms that they use and the meanings they associate with those terms, if you speak like them, you're one of them. Consider yourself part of Gog and Magog. This is where they converge, Gog and Magog and Dajjal. This is where they converge because they share the same idea. They have the same objective, the same purpose. It's all a convergence. All the 10 signs that have been mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ regarding the hour, the 10 major signs that we call them, the ayat al-kubra, or they also call asharat al-kubra. These 10 are not isolated incidences. In eschatology, you have to remember, these 10 signs are not isolated. They are all interlinked. This is not AbuBilaal saying it. This the Prophet ﷺ also said it in another hadith, that these signs are like pearls in a necklace. They are all joined in the same loop. When they break, they all fall at the same time. They all manifest in and around the same instances. They are all part of the same grand agenda, which is a demonic agenda. So they do converge in that sense. Gog and Magog, Ad-Dajjal, Dabatul Ard, and the Dukhan, the great smoke, the fire that rises, the earthquakes, and the coming of the Mahdi is a challenge to them. And the return of Nabi Isa is a challenge to them, but they all pertained to the same subject matter. And so they all converge into a singularity, a single point. So Gog and Magog and Ad-Dajjal, this is where they converge ideologically. They want to establish the same world order. They belong to the same world order, or they want to establish the same world order, which is what they call Novus Ordo Seclorum. A new secular order, a new worldly order without divinity in the picture. This is ours. We will establish it. And when the Quran, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. When it is said to them, don't cause corruption in the world. What do they say? قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. We're just trying to make things better. We're just trying to make a better world. This is their language. When you hear them speak in their summits and their climate control things and whatever they're doing, and the United Nations Security Councils and World Economic Forums, and all the activists will come out, save the planet, etc., etc. You see, that's their language. قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. We're just trying to make the world a better place. ألا إنهم هم المفسدون. But they are the ones who are causing this corruption. ولكن لا يشعرون. They have no clue. They have no sense of what they're doing. They don't even realize they're completely gone on the other side. They think that Why are they doing genetic? What is that? The genetic technology, gene editing. Why are they doing that? You think it's to cure Alzheimer's and cancer? That's why they're doing it? That's not why they're doing it. They think that they're going to make a new human being. You see, next step in evolution. But that's corruption. Corruption of what divinity has created. He didn't create this human being, this body, for you to make changes to it. Why didn't he do it in the first place then? Put the changes in there. Or he created this so that you can bring upgrades? Is that why he created the land and the sea? So that you can put up shopping malls and say, we are doing something phenomenal here? That's corruption. That's fasad. Very long answer. But I hope it answers that. These are subjects that you know, we can really go on and on talking about.